What's up guys, JV2017 here, bringing you a new Fallout 4 tips and tricks video. Today I spent several hours messing around with settlements in the game, so I thought it would make sense to cover that here on my channel. Just a quick reminder guys, this is your #1 hub for Fallout 4 content here on YouTube, so make sure to subscribe if you haven't already, and stay tuned on my channel for daily Fallout 4 tips and tricks videos. Today I am starting my settlement guide, and this time we'll cover the very basics of workshop settlements. So far this seems to be a fairly complex system, so we're going to cover the foundations today, and then I'll make a follow-up kind of advanced settlement guide video later down the road when I've had more time with it. Starting with some general settlement information, there are 30 available workshop locations in the Commonwealth. That's 30 different places where you can build structures and attract settlers and manage them. And I think it's way more than anyone really thought there would be. Unlocking these workshops requires one of three things. You can unlock it by just finding it by discovery, or you can unlock it by completing a quest or clearing it. So Sanctuary and Red Rocket are the first workshops that you'll come across after leaving the vault. They're very immediate. You'll find them within the first hour, and there's also a huge tutorial for Sanctuary, so you should get the extreme basics, but of course this covers all of the basics of settlements. And most of the workshops require a quest, like I said, to unlock them, or clearing enemies. So you'll have to go kill the ghouls there. Maybe there's some raiders there that have the settlement, and once you clear the raiders, you'll have everything that they had and be able to build upon that. Of course, your settlements involve resource management, so kind of managing all these different resources, juggling them to make sure your settlement is happy and growing and productive. And then in terms of perks, I'm not going real in depth in this video, but the main perks that will help you in settlements are local leader, gun nut, science, and hacker. Let's look at the first resource in the game, and that's people. So this really just measures the number of settlers that are at your current settlement. And you can assign people to certain jobs or objects that require a person. You'll see that very clearly on the object. If it needs a person, it'll have a little, vault boy. So this stat actually dictates what most resource levels need to be at. So keep that in mind. Also, this has a beds requirement. You have to have a certain amount of beds in order to meet a people requirement. I'll kind of explain that when we talk about beds. So the thing with the people stat is this is more of a measurement than a requirement. You don't need a certain requirement of people. However, once you have a certain amount of people, that creates other requirements. As I said, you can assign settlers and even companions to certain jobs that'll be like workbenches, taking care of crops or defending your settlement. And as I mentioned briefly, your population, the number of people you have, directly dictates the amount of food you need, how much water you need, and how much defense you need. And if those levels are not met, you will suffer lower happiness and lower productivity. So that's kind of a bad thing. You just need to make sure that the amount of people you have matches the amount of food, water, and defense you have. I'll talk more about that later. Here are some extra side notes. So there are some restrictions for assignment. So for example, maybe Preston Garvey won't be able to take care of crops. That's just an example. I don't know if that's true. So there will be some restrictions there. Also, if you hover over certain settlers in workshop mode, it'll tell you what they are assigned to by highlighting it. So if I hover over a guy and I've already assigned him to a bunch of crops, those crops will light up, telling me that that's his job. That's what he's responsible for. If you have anyone not assigned to a certain job or a workbench or whatever, they automatically gain salvage. You'll see them go around your settlement and kind of, bang a hammer on stuff. They're gathering salvage, and they'll actually deposit it into your workshop. And of course, you use your workshop to use all that junk in order to create things and build things. So it's very useful even if people are not assigned to certain jobs. One last side note, I was really confused about supply lines, so I wanted to put this in this video when I found out. So in order to establish a supply line with local leader rank 1, you have to hover over a certain settler, and then it'll give you the prompt on the bottom, and it just says supply line. So you click that, and you'll be able to navigate and actually set up a supply line between two settlements, and I'll explain more about what this does in my advanced settlements video. When you want to grow your people and max out your population potentially, you want to recruit settlers. And the way you do that is by creating a recruitment radio beacon. That will require power, so keep that in mind. I'm going to talk about power in a second. But also, this is very important, the amount of charisma that you have actually dictates your maximum population. So one settlement automatically can hold 10 settlers, and you get one extra settler for every point of charisma that you have. So I think that means the max is 20. Don't hold me on that. There's some kind of weird things where you can get up to 11 in each category, which would make it 21. I'm not sure about that, but this is generally how it works for population. Next is the food resource, and this is very simply the amount of food that your settlement produces. And you're able to plant crops in dirt and dirt only, keep that in mind, and assign settlers to those crops in order to harvest them. And you yourself, the player, can actually harvest them. So this requirement, again, is dictated by the amount of people. If you have 6 people, you need 6 food, or else you're, suffering the consequences. So certain foods can be planted in dirt. It'll tell you when you're in the food menu in the workshop mode. And again, you can only plant them in dirt. So if you don't have a lot of dirt on a specific settlement, use that space wisely. Maybe decide to build upwards instead of outwards, and use that precious dirt very sparingly. Like I said, you have to assign a settler in order to get that food harvested, in order for it to count. So once you assign a settler, though, it's taken care of. You don't have to worry about it anymore. They will do their job, and you can actually assign one settler to 6 separate crops, and they can be different crops. It doesn't have to be the same kind of plant. So that's very useful. And again, as the player, you can go up and actually just pick out, a gourd or a tato. I don't know how you say that, tato, and you can either eat it, for yourself, you can sell it, or you could replant it and get even more crops. So it's really up to you. You can really tell how you can maximize your amount of food very quickly. Water is the next resource, and it's the amount of water that your settlement produces. So in order to get water, you place pumps and you just basically receive water. And the requirement is dictated again by the amount of people. If you have 6 people, you need 6 water. And the first ground pump actually needs no power, but once you go up from there, you'll get purifiers where you actually stick them in the water. So those are different. So the ground pump is just in the dirt, and it doesn't matter where it is, just on dirt. But if you go upwards into the more advanced ones, you'll place those in water, they'll purify that water and then give you clean water, and they'll require power, like I said. The thing about water is you don't need to assign settlers. They just, the pumps do it themselves, which is very nice. Power is another resource, and it just measures the amount of power that your settlement produces. And essentially you use wires to link generators to objects that require power. So this is not something that is tied to people. It's actually completely separate. It doesn't even matter. People don't just inherently need power, but if you place objects that need power, those objects will obviously need power. So that's what that requirement is dictated by. And I would say before you start messing with power, save your game, because there are a lot of resources that it requires, and it's easy to mess up when you don't know what you're doing. So the step-by-step process of power is that you place an object that requires power, like a TV or a light bulb or something bigger, and then you create a generator, and a generator just requires resources. It doesn't require something else to power it. It's independent. So once you make a generator, then you have to link that generator to something that requires power. And the way you do that is by using a wire. And for example, if you have a house full of things that needs power, you have to put a conduit or a switch on that house somewhere, and then you have to link your generator by a wire to that conduit or switch, and it should power most of the house. Now keep in mind, if you're doing something like I did and kind of making renovations and building onto the first house that they give you in Sanctuary, you're gonna have to do some more engineering. I couldn't figure it out myself. I'm gonna have to, experiment with it more to get it working, but I made something above that initial house, and it was very hard to get me to power it from the generator below. So I think I'm gonna have to put a generator way up in the top, and that may be something we're gonna need to do for really high, vertical structures. I've read that distance is an issue, and of course that makes sense in real life. Wire distance, if you're trying to, stretch a really long wire, you're gonna lose power over distance. Keep that in mind. Also keep in mind, each wire that you make costs copper, and each conduit that you make costs a lot of copper, and if you scrap those things, you don't get that copper back. So be careful, make sure you save while you're setting up your power in your settlements. Next is defense, and this measures the defensive strength of your settlement against attackers. This will be raiders, super mutants, maybe ghouls. I'm not sure about that, but I've seen both of the first two. And essentially for defense, you place objects, defense objects, and you have to assign settlers to them. Some of them are automated. So the defense requirement, again, is dictated by the amount of people you have. If you have 6 people, you need 6 defense in order to defend them. So if you're under that defense requirement, that increases the chance that you will be attacked. So you need to make sure and keep that defense requirement up. And defense consists of kind of guard posts and kind of artillery kind of things you can make as well as automated turrets and traps that you can set. So there's a lot of, nuance going on there. I'm not going to dive into those different types, but I do know that posts require an assignment. So you need to put a settler on guard posts, and you can actually put one settler on 3 different guard posts, and they will go in between them, I assume. And so that kind of maximizes your settlement usage, and you'll get 6 defense out of that because each post is 2 defense. Beds is another resource that is tracked, and this is just dirt simple. It's the amount of beds you have, and this is the requirement for people. So every individual person needs a bed. If they don't have a bed, you'll suffer that, happiness, productivity penalty. And all of the beds that you can make are the same. You don't get significant bonuses from making just like a little sleeping bag, a cot, or, an actual mattress kind of bed. The final resource that is measured is happiness. And this is your overall settler satisfaction. And as you increase this, it'll improve the production within your settlement. So generally, you just need to meet those food, water, bed, and defense requirements. Make sure they're all level with the amount of people that you have. And higher happiness just means more food production, more salvage generated, like I mentioned. A few more things that will increase it are defending a settlement, if you're able to defend it successfully, or doing a quest for somebody, for a settler in your settlement. Building certain stores will, increase the happiness of your settlement. And also buying a dog. You can buy a dog for your settlement. So once it gets there, people will be very, very happy. Finally, I wanted to touch on managing your settlements. And you can actually check on their statuses by not being there, by checking your Pip-Boy or tuning into the Radio Freedom for updates. So in order to check it on your Pip-Boy, you go under data, and then you'll see workshops there, and then you'll see kind of a warning sign, a triangle, telling you which is the weakness in your settlement. What do you have to improve? So it's very helpful in that respect, even when you're in your settlement. I'm not actually sure on the radio. This is something I read. There's a certain radio where you can tune in for updates on your settlements. I'm not sure about that, but apparently it is possible. So explore that option for your management as well. So what I want to know is, what have you guys done with settlements? Have you messed around with the system a lot? Do you know a lot about it? Do you know more than I do? Because let us all know in the comment section below whatever kind of basic tips that you have with settlements. I'm sure everyone would appreciate it. Will you mess with settlements now that you've watched this video? You have a better understanding and grasp on how it works? Let me know. Share all of that in the comment section below. Alright guys, today I shared the basics of settlements in Fallout 4, and next time we will cover more Fallout 4 on my channel, so stay tuned for daily Fallout 4 tips and tricks videos, and remember that this is your #1 hub for all Fallout 4 content on YouTube. If you learned something new, remember to hit that like button, and make sure to subscribe if you haven't already for continued Fallout 4. I've got a lot more content planned for this first week and into the future. Talk to you guys next time. Peace.